Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for October 21st through 27th. This week I read 4 books, I watched 4 shows, and I listened to 1 audiobook. Full disclosure, this video is going up a little bit later than I usually do because I just got back from Seattle. I took a boat. I'm very tired, and there was absolutely no way to pre-film this, and also I didn't want to film it while I was in Seattle because I didn't have my usual setup, and I was visiting friends. Everything that I read this week was for Spooktober, which is a week-long readathon. I sort of technically finished all the challenges, although not really with the books that I intended. Now that I'm thinking about that, I'm not sure if I'm lying or not. I know that there was a challenge for an anthology of some persuasion, and I think that I had that separate from a poetry anthology that I did end up reading. And I think that poetry anthology was for a different challenge, so if you count it for both I finished, I can't remember what the challenges were. Again, I'm real tired. Short story anthologies always take way longer to read than I think they're going to, and I'm still currently reading that anthology. Before I get into what I read, watched, and listened to, this weekend I was at GeekGirlCon, which is why this is coming so late. That was a lot of fun. This is the 5th time I've been. This was the first time I talked on a panel there. We talked about Riverdale and how that town is very dangerous, and I got to rant about twin science and how it doesn't really work in that show. Which is funny because I found out that the actor who plays Jughead is a twin, so I just wonder how annoyed he is by the science or if he doesn't care. I don't know. I also got to meet authors C.B. Lee as well as Britta Lundin, and that was really exciting for me. Not to mention how cool it is that Britta Lundin also writes for Riverdale, and I had just been on a panel talking about Riverdale, so that was cool. Anyway, the first thing I read this week was called Ghosts in Amityville. This was a graphic novel for children about the house in Amityville that is haunted. They made a movie about this many years ago. They made a remake of it with Ryan Reynolds after that. I've seen both those movies. I grew up on the first movie, and I just wanted to see what this graphic novel would be about. It was very, very PG. It was not gory at all. It was definitely for children. But it was still fun to see the facts of the case again, because it's been a very long time since I've thought about that haunted house situation. The poetry collection I read was The Hungry Ghost Festival by Jen Campbell. This one I've actually had on my shelf for years, and used this readathon as an excuse to finally pick it up. I, like many people, don't necessarily get on with poetry or feel like I'm missing something when I read poetry, mostly because I don't go into what I read with like a fine-tooth comb, and you kind of have to do that with some poetry, and this is that type of poetry. I enjoyed the reading experience. I remember feeling connected to some of the things that I was reading, but I don't remember anything from it. Also, I've read like 4 books since then, so that's valid. I enjoyed it, but nothing jumped out and really grabbed my attention. And that's more of a I'm not used to poetry thing as opposed to not enjoying Jen's writing, which I do. Next, I read Moonstruck Volume 1, which was adorable. This is about 2 queer werewolf ladies, and they've just started dating. One of them works in a coffee shop, and her best friend also works there, is a gender-fluid centaur, and basically everyone in this world has some mystical or magical element to them, and it's delightful. The art is beautiful, and somebody on a panel actually described it as candy-colored, and I agree with that assessment. And the romance and relationships unfolded in ways that were just adorable. The last physical book I read this week was called Occult and Battery. This one is about a woman who works as a psychic on a small island. She has a psychology background, so really she uses her powers of observation to pick up on things. And it doesn't seem like she necessarily believes in psychics, but she believes in it enough to help people out. Because her island doesn't see much tourism in the winter time, she partners with a local hotel that's just opening to do a psychic reading there. It's this big group event, and because this hotel has a history of being haunted, it seems like the perfect venue. She has a lot at stake because if this doesn't go well, her business could go under. And because this falls into the cozy mystery category, obviously somebody winds up dead. I really enjoyed this one. I think it might be the second in a series, if not further on in a series, but I don't feel like I need to have read the previous books in the series to get everything out of this. Anything that was really important from the past was kind of explained throughout the text, such as her relationships with what she calls her exes, that being her ex-husband and her ex-best friend who are now together. Like a good mystery, this had a bunch of different misdirection. You didn't really know who was going to be the bad guy, and I really enjoyed it, and I think I'm going to try to find more from the series. On to the shows I watched this week. So we all know by this point that I'm doing a watch of Survivor Season 11. I'm also watching Survivor Season 37, which is the current season, and I did both of those things. I'm kind of getting to the point in talking about Survivor where there's not much new to talk about, but we did have the first instance of a hidden immunity idol in Season 11, so that's the first time it's ever been done in the show, so it's kind of interesting to see that because that is something that is done in all of the seasons after that, to my knowledge. My next show was Riverdale. I intended to rewatch the first 2 seasons and then catch up on the 3rd season before doing my panel. I didn't exactly finish my rewatch, unfortunately. There's this chunk of the 2nd season I didn't get to because I ran out of time. But in order to refresh myself of like the very end and see the new episodes, I used this feature on Netflix where you can download the episodes and watch them offline, so I could watch them while I was on the boat down to Seattle. So I downloaded the last episode of the 2nd season so I could remind myself how it wrapped up, and then I downloaded the 3 episodes from the 3rd season. So I started watching the last episode and realized that I haven't actually seen it. My friends were very adamant that we had watched the last episode of the 2nd season and it ended in a very cliffhanger-y way. So without spoilers, I've just been spending all this time with that final image of one person holding another person bleeding to death in my mind, thinking that's how the season ended. If you're familiar with the show, the season did have a cliffhanger ending, for sure, but it was a very different one, which plays into what is happening in season 3. Season 3 is very weird so far, but I love it. While I was staying with my friend Amara, they found out that I had never heard of David S. Pumpkins, which was a character from Saturday Night Live played by Tom Hanks. So we watched the clip from Saturday Night Live of that character, and then, because apparently America lost their shit over this character, the following Halloween, which would have been last Halloween, they released this 40-minute animated Halloween special that was narrated by Peter Dinklage. So we watched that too. If you are not familiar with this, it's weird, and the music was stuck in my head when I woke up this morning. It's kind of unexplainable, you just have to find it for yourself. On to the book I listened to this week, that was Bruja Born by Zoraida Cordova, which is the 2nd in the Brooklyn Brujas series. I read the first of these books either late last year or early this year, and I remember really enjoying it. And I remember there being an adventure element to it and really enjoying how everything played out with the kind of 3 central characters we had. This book centers around a different protagonist. The main character in the first one was Alex, and now we are centering on her sister Lula. I think by this point you know that I like to go into things not really knowing too much about them, and I went into this one just knowing it had a different protagonist and didn't know anything, and I think that's how I prefer people to go into this one. It starts off with Lula and her family in their house, and they're kind of bickering, and her sister is using glamour magic on her to disguise some scars she got in the previous book, which she's been doing since the previous book timeline, basically. Lula has a lot of angst and has had some troubles dealing with that, and leaves home to go to a sports game that her boyfriend is playing in, and then something happens that changes the whole course of their lives. I don't really want to tell you what it is because spoilers. Regardless, if you read the first one and you enjoyed the magic system and you enjoyed the family aspect of it, you will enjoy this sequel. Unlike Occult and Battery, I do not suggest reading this one without reading the first one. And there you have it. There is my very, very sleepy wrap-up of what I read, watched, and listened to last week. Have you read, watched, or listened to any of these? Let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I'll see you very soon. Bye! Joy!